Welcome to Moms of the Loop podcast, hosted by and recorded for St. Louis moms. Grab your laundry basket, kick your feet up for nap time, or head out the door for pickup and spend a little time catching up with your favorite St. Louis moms. Hosted by a fellow St. Louis mom, Rebecca Coast, let's dive into our discussion today. Well, hello, St. Louis moms. This is Rebecca Coast, the host of Moms of the Loop podcast. Welcome to 2025. We are so excited to be back for another year of our podcast of telling stories of local St. Louis moms. And we are thrilled today to be joined in studio by a local mom, Kira Andersen. Hello, Kira. Welcome.
Hi, Rebecca. Thank you for having me.
You are so welcome. So Kira, tell us a little bit about yourself. I know you wear a couple different hats.
I do wear a couple different hats. I don't know, where do I even start? I am a mom of 3.
Mhm.
I have a 7-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 4-year-old.
Mhm.
Girl, boy. I also am a health and wellness coach.
Yes.
So I take clients one-on-one and
Okay.
kind of help them rewire their brain and learn about fueling their body right. And how to really be grateful for each day
Mhm.
and grateful for our bodies. What else? Oh, I teach spin at True Fusion.
Very
It's
cool.
kind of a fun thing I do a couple days a week.
I have never taken a spin class.
Oh my gosh, it's so fun.
What do you like about it? What do you like about teaching spin?
I love one of the reasons I love it is because I can kill 2 birds with 1 stone. So
Mhm.
I can get a workout in while I'm teaching.
Okay.
But I just love motivating people.
Yeah.
And really, people become enthralled in the 45-minute workout. And sometimes you don't even realize you're working out.
Yeah.
And it's just a really good cardio workout that's easy on your joints.
Yes.
So,
Okay. That's what I need. Easy on the joints.
Yeah, I know. Well, I just turned 40 and all of
Yeah.
a sudden I'm like, those things are cracking.
Right.
And like tweaking.
Yeah.
So we have to think about that stuff.
Yeah.
So.
The slow wake up.
Yeah,
What we go
exactly.
for. Yeah.
Exactly.
That's awesome. So are you a St. Louis transplant or
I
native?
am a transplant.
Transplant. Okay.
Yes.
Hailing from where originally?
So I'm from Omaha, Nebraska originally.
Huh.
You are too?
Yes. Our podcast manager,
Oh
Trina,
my
is also from
goodness.
Nebraska.
Where'd you go to high school? Oh, no.
No.
I went to Marion. I figured I need to ask a high school question because I'm in St. Louis.
Oh, is that something they ask in Nebraska?
It's not as frequent as it is here in St. Louis.
Was it weird for you when you came here and you were like, why are they asking about it?
Yes, because, yeah, absolutely. So I was born and raised in Omaha, came here. I actually went to SMS for school, which was Missouri State. I was the first Missouri State graduating class.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. And then moved to California. So in no other place I've lived is that a common question.
Yeah.
Right? So, I mean, people might ask where you went to college. And like I lived in Northern California and I went to like Stanford or transferred from Harvard, or, it's so funny.
Yeah, it is funny. We still to this day don't know why. We did a whole podcast episode on it, and we can't really figure it out.
It's like a social economic,
yes, it is.
What area do you come from, and do our parents rub elbows, or
exactly? Yeah, it's a very loaded question.
Yeah, totally.
Where'd you go to high school?
Totally.
Okay, so when did you come to St. Louis?
2015, actually, which is wild. I'm like, oh my, this year's 2025.
Yeah.
10 years.
10 years.
That's crazy.
What brought you to St. Louis?
Kyle, my husband.
Your husband.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
Very cool.
So I cannot even, the last 10 years has been so wild.
Yeah. Absolutely wild.
But yeah, I like St. Louis.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you're a mom of 3.
Yes.
Where do you like to go with your kids in St. Louis?
Oh gosh, the Magic House, of course. We're Magic House members. When the weather's good, we go on your Instagram page and look and see what parks are new or fun that we haven't been to.
Yes.
We live in Frontenac, so we go to Kirkwood, for obviously Magic House, but different parks around that area.
Yeah.
And gosh, what else they love the aquarium.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
The zoo,
of course,
Science Center,
all the
staples.
All the staples.
Yes. And again, I'm not just saying this because I'm on your podcast. I'm dead serious. I go to the page and I'm like, all right, what do we got going on here? Like if we're trying to look for a new park or a pumpkin patch or a place to go to to look for trees or Christmas lights or whatever. It's a go-to.
Yay.
Yeah.
Well, that's the goal. The goal is that moms don't have to worry, they can focus on their families, come find what you need. And
That's exactly what it is for me. And
yeah,
I always
the goal.
try to, I try to promote you guys on my Instagram because it's, there's so much going on as a mom. It's like if you have one place to go and you're like, where am I going to take my kids? I have them for the whole day, nothing planned.
Yeah.
They want to get out of the house.
Yeah.
So I love the 5 activities for
Yeah,
the weekend.
to do. Yeah.
I love it. I love it all.
Love that.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, I'm glad we could be a resource for your
sure.
family.
You are for my family.
Yay.
Yeah.
Yay. Well, so, the heart of St. Louis Mom is, of course, that we would provide activities and ideas for families locally, but we also have such a heart for the moms here and your stories. And so I've been following your story now for a couple years, and I wanted to have you on because I think your story is obviously it's unique, but I also think that there's a lot that we can learn from you, and just learn about leaning into supporting moms who are walking through hard stuff. So, I'd love for you to tell us a little bit about your story and about your husband Kyle.
Sure. Yes, and I agree with you. It's all I always say to people, and I truly believe this: we're all in this together.
Yeah.
Right. Like life is not easy for anybody.
Right.
We're all handed a different set of cards, and unfortunately, the Andersen family was handed a really difficult set of cards. So my husband, when my kids were 4, 2, and 11 months, was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer. So he had been sick all year, basically since right after my son was born, and we didn't know how serious it was. He had common symptoms that a lot of people have: belly aches, acid reflux time to time, some back pain, typical. I ate something wrong, or I'm getting older, or I shouldn't have so much coffee, or I'm stressed. And so by the time, and I do want to note here that it's really important for people to pay attention to their bodies. So I was a health and wellness coach even before Kyle got sick. Now I'm on fire about it, but one of the reasons I preach that we all really should be fueling our bodies to the best of our ability, follow the 80-20 rule, is because if you're eating well, eating clean most of the time, you're going to know when something's off in your body.
Sure.
And if it's off for a long period of time and you can't figure out what it is, you got to keep asking questions.
Yes.
So we unfortunately were misdiagnosed, of course, as most GI cancer patients are.
Okay.
Which GI cancer is on the rise. I don't say that to scare everybody, but we just
it is. Yeah.
We need to know. So that's anything from your mouth all the way down to where it comes out.
And was he having symptoms? Was it pretty consistently, or was it coming and going? Or
coming and going. I mean, it started with fatigue, but again, we had kids. We had 3 kids in 3 years, and an international move in between that. And my husband was, at Edward Jones, high up at a stressful job.
Sure.
So I was tired. He was tired. I was nursing. We're tired.
Tired people. Yeah.
So it was almost like a battle of who's tired more. Like we would give each other a scale. Like I'm at a 0. I have nothing. We would do a scale. And I remember actually we go to Florida typically in January to get out of the freezing cold, dreary weather. I am absolutely not a winter person, just for the record. Okay. So anyway, we went to Florida, and I remember him like needing so many naps, and I'm like, what do you mean you're tired? I'm getting up with these babies, nurse, you know what I mean? Like it was just, and now looking back, like that was probably the start of it all. Was he was so tired. And that is a symptom, that is something, but it's again, if you're getting regular sleep, so it's, it is important for us all to get a good amount of sleep for our body to recover, to function well. Again, if you're treating your body well, you're going to know when these outliers are outliers.
Sure.
So anywho, he had symptoms all year. Like I said, tired. One of the main was his bowel movements were regular. And some people are like, it's kind of awkward to talk about. I'm like, nope. If you're a healthy person, it's typically normal. And we all should be able to talk about it and know that about ourselves.
Absolutely.
So he had regular bowel movements, and they started not being regular. He wasn't able to go when he normally went. And, we had been told that he just maybe had, symptoms of IBS
Mm-hmm.
or, that was one of the main things that kept pushing us off and saying, perhaps it's IBS. And, he had blood work done and nothing showed up. And then he had a colonoscopy, late summer, early fall. Again, nothing. And we were like, all right, sweet. It's nothing. Let's just keep trying probiotics. And,
What year was this?
This was 2021.
Okay.
And then finally in October, he was really constipated and felt like he had to go, but couldn't go. And again, let me just paint this picture. We have babies running around, okay? Like, it's chaos at our house.
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out what the heck just happened in my life. Like, I completely left my career, everything I knew, came here, got married, had a baby, moved to Toronto, came down, had another baby, pandemic hit, another baby, then Kyle's sick, but we don't know what it is.
Right.
So my point in saying that is that I wasn't able to really focus on one thing.
Yeah.
And really, but at the end of October, he vomited. He's like, nothing can go up or down. And we're like, all right, he's blocked and this is weird. So I'm like, well, let's go to the emergency room once and for all. And that was a Saturday night and we didn't have help. So we were like, all right, we'll have to wait till the morning.
Yeah.
So we don't have any family here. So we waited till the morning. I got one of our sitters to come over and driving, we went to Mercy because Mercy's the closest ER to us. And driving there, he's like, do you think I have stomach cancer? Mind you, my husband was a hypochondriac, so add that onto the pile of things. He was nervous about everything. So I'm like, no, of course you don't have stomach cancer, honey. It's not, we're going to get this figured out. It's a bowel blockage or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But never in a million years did I think that cancer was the answer. And so we arrived at Mercy and they took his blood work and, pushed on him and did a scan. And a couple hours later, I'll never forget this petite little sweet female doctor coming in with someone else, saying there's three tumor, like, it looks like he has tumors, 3 different tumors in his body. And we think it's cancer. And I remember looking at him and he just went white. And I looked at her and I'm like, but how do you know?
Yeah.
Surely these are benign. Can we take a biopsy? I mean, this can't be real. And she's like, no, we're pretty sure it's cancer.
Oh, what went through your mind when she...
Oh my gosh, Rebecca. I lost it. I remember thinking this can't be. And I actually physically started screaming. I was like, this can't be. Yeah. I mean, I know I was saying something along the lines of, we have babies. Like, this isn't, this can't be us. Yeah. This isn't our time for this to happen. I mean, Kyle had worked his whole life. We married, later in life and had babies. This was our time to have a family. Yeah. We had waited so long for each other. And, I was in disbelief, shock, and I'm like, this, can we just double check? And they're like, no, it's cancer.
Yeah. We know what it is.
Yeah, exactly.
So what happened next?
They had to put a tube down his nose to drain his belly because what had happened was the tumor started in the tail of his pancreas. And just so everyone's aware, pancreatic cancer is a silent cancer until it hits another organ oftentimes, which is why 9 times out of 10, it's diagnosed stage 4.
Okay.
If it's diagnosed before, it's an anomaly. So it happened by chance. Maybe they caught it in another scan. So his had wrapped from the tail of his pancreas. It basically grew arms, which pancreatic cancer can do, around his colon and constricted his colon. And so he had everything in his stomach. He had a perforated bowel. So they had to put a tube down his nose to drain him, which was awful. Get him drained up. And to be honest with you, it is the details are a little fuzzy because, it's like someone walks in a room and says, well, there's a stage 5 hurricane in your life. Let's start making some decisions. So everything just kind of starts.
Right. You're like, where's the center? What do we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What day is it? Who am I?
Right.
This can't be real life.
Right. Yeah. And then you have to start making decisions right away.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. So that was October 24th, 2021. My life changed forever.
And did they give you kind of were they able to tell you the stage right away, or what did that process look like?
So they were very careful in what they said to us. They didn't, I don't remember when the stage happened. Now, knowing what I know, it would have been obvious because she said 3 different spots. The spots on his pancreas, his liver, and I think lung is where they initially found it. And that is stage 4 because it's metastasized somewhere else.
Okay.
So, but they wouldn't tell us a time frame. It was like, let's keep him alive right now because he was essentially close. I mean, he could have gotten sepsis and, they're thinking keep him alive. Right. And so, I mean, drained him. I mean, all this stuff's coming out of his, belly that had been there for however long. Yeah. And like I said, we're in Mercy. And also this is during COVID. Yeah. Let's not forget.
Right.
So a lot of the beds are taken up. So what do we have to do? Wait. There's a lot of waiting. Yeah. Waiting for a bed. Finally getting a bed, having to share a room. Yeah. And figure out how bad is this? Yeah. And it was bad. Yeah. It was all over his perineum. So basically the outer layer of his stomach. Wow. I mean, even I found out like a year ago, I think maybe even after he passed, or maybe it was it was towards the end of his life that he had a spot on his hip that they had never even addressed because they it literally was like, how do we keep this man alive? Yeah. So, yeah.
So you get the diagnosis and then you go to Siteman, right?
Well, and that wasn't an easy, yes. So we're at Mercy and the oncologist comes in and basically sits down, and you can just see it all over the doctor's faces. Like, this isn't hopeful for anybody. And I remember him saying, we'll do chemo and, kind of that's it. We do chemo and see what happens. And I just remember frantically asking, like, well, what does that mean? Like, how long is he going to have chemo? What, then what? And finally I'm like, can you come out in the hallway with me? I'm like, I need, like, tell me what's going on.
Yeah.
And he's like, this happened to my dad, and they don't last, live very long. And I was like, okay, well, that's not good enough. So I'm like, okay, great, nice to meet you. Thank you for your comments. And go back in, and actually 2 of my best friends here in St. Louis, one had beaten cancer at 31. She was 4 or 5 years out at that point when I met her. And then another girlfriend had beaten stage 3B colorectal cancer and had her treatment finished a year before Kyle was diagnosed. So those are my first 2 calls in the Mercy ER. And they basically both were like, you need to get to Siteman. Yeah. My girlfriend Joanna, who I referenced as stage 3 colorectal cancer survivor, started making phone calls. As did some of the Edward Jones folks, because my husband worked at Edward Jones, to get him a bed at Siteman. But it took some convincing because, again, my husband was nervous. His sister from Bozeman came in, and they, initially she was like, he'll be fine at Mercy, and that's not the case. I am a huge advocate of getting right to Siteman if you can, because they are a research hospital. Sure. They specialize in all sorts of different cancers. Nothing against Mercy, but they are not a research hospital.
Of course, yeah.
And again, we're transplants here, so we don't really know. We hadn't had cancer in our family. Yeah. Anyway, all these phone calls were happening. Someone was on the board of Siteman that, and we finally eventually got a room at Siteman. But again, it took time. It took tons of calls, which in and of itself is sickening to me, to be honest with you. That you have to know people, and you really have to be your own advocate, and that's anybody. You have to be your own advocate to follow your heart and the advice of others who have gone through something that you've been through, specifically cancer. Yeah. So thank God we got into Siteman. Yeah. And they were able to get him in, get him drained, put a stent in. So that was a risky procedure because our colon, all of our insides are very fragile, and they had to go in with some netting and basically, like, those finger, what are those called? Trying to describe.
I know what you're talking
about. The torture where you put your 2 point her fingers in.
Yes, I know what you mean.
And it's like net.
I know exactly what it is. It's like a...
Someone in the audience or someone listening is like shouting at us right now.
What it is.
The torture.
Yes.
Yeah.
I know what you mean. I can't think of the word.
Yeah.
But
That's okay. So anyhow, it's similar to that.
Mm-hmm.
That type of material, like fishnet, whatever. So they go in and they put it in the colon, and the goal is to open the colon up without proliferating it. Because if they cut through, it's bad news bears, right?
Yeah.
They can get really sick. So
yeah.
And I just want to say here, like, I felt very, like, I had hope when no one else.
You had hope.
No one else had hope. In fact, people were trying to convince me that I didn't know how serious this was. I had family members, doctors, saying, like, this is really serious. I'm like, oh, I know it's serious, but I had hope.
Yeah.
I had peace. It's
so
like,
you believed what they were saying about the prognosis?
No, I didn't believe.
You didn't. Okay.
I was saying he is not going to be, like, he's going to get more than a few months.
Yeah.
I had hope that he was going to be the miracle. I set my eyes on that, my heart on that, and I wasn't giving up because, again, I had babies at home.
Yeah.
We had just gotten married, not that long ago. 5 years prior to his diagnosis.
Yeah.
And so despite what people were telling me, I'm like, I'm not taking it.
Yeah.
So
he started his treatment plan.
Yes. Actually, there's an important part of the story. So he did get a stent put in. That surgery was successful. And then we had to wait a week and a half to see Kyle's oncologist because he was referred to a specialist who only sees patients 1 day a week. He does research in a lab the other days.
Is this the one I think you're going to talk about? The doctor?
Dr. Keon Lim?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Yay, yay.
Yeah, he's amazing.
Okay.
But we didn't know him at this point.
Okay.
So Kyle decided he wanted to go see his family in Montana. It was over Halloween. He wanted to go see his family and go back home before he started chemo.
Okay.
Like, okay, so get all the kids ready, everything going. We go to Montana, and his cancer continued to grow. So pancreatic cancer grows very quickly.
Okay.
A lot of cancer supposedly grows at the pace of our fingernail, but not pancreatic cancer. So we go over to Bozeman, Montana, visit his family, and his cancer grows back over another place. Okay. And so he was feeling well, and he's having extreme pain, and I mean, like, it was horrid. So we got him in the emergency room in Bozeman, which Bozeman is not a big city.
Sure.
It's not a big town.
Right,
So there aren't a lot of pancreatic cancer specialists running around there.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, we get him in the ER because his sister is a doctor there. So we were able to get him in quickly. And he wasn't stable. I cannot remember what, I don't even remember much, but we got an x-ray and it showed that the cancer had grown and constricted him again. So then we had to take an emergency flight back to St. Louis.
Wow.
Luckily, it was on a Thursday and Dr. Lim was in. We got to see him right away. He and his whole staff came in and took a look at him, and they said he was yellow as can be. I do not remember him being yellow at all. But that happens a lot of times when there's malfunction in the liver. And so he had to get another tube placed in his belly to drain him because he was, clogged again, essentially. And that tube draining his belly stayed in until July of that next year to drain him because he wasn't open. So then we finally got a bed again, incitement. Again, we're waiting. And we started chemo then. But here's the thing. When he got into that bed at Siteman, all the other doctors on that floor and that team, unbeknownst to me at the time, or Kyle, I found this out later, they had all advised Dr. Lim to put him on hospice right away.
So this would have been the fall of 2022?
No, this was fall of 2021 still. So this is
2021,
October 24th diagnosis. We're back in the hospital at the beginning of November with the tubes out, draining. He had an abscess, draining everything. Dr. Lim came to see him in the hospital, and basically all his colleagues, because they do a tumor review board every Monday. They look at all the cases, and they all review it and say what did they agree the protocol would be, what they do next. And apparently they said he's a hospice case. So he was coming into our room to say, unfortunately, this is it. And he said when he walked in, he saw how young Kyle was, how young I was. We had pictures of the kids. I had this whole shrine up, like a picture of a clean pancreas, a clean liver, our family, like everyone had sent cards, like this whole shrine up. And Dr. Lim just said, I looked at everything and said, we're going to do this. So he gave it a shot.
Wow.
I know.
Wow.
I know.
What a fierce mom to go to battle for your family. I mean, wow.
Well, yeah, I mean, that was Dr. Lim. So they gave him chemo, and actually the tumor released off his colon. So he did respond initially, which is praise God.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So then he had to have, for a few months, he was on, there's only there were only 2 standard of care treatments for pancreatic cancer at the time. So they tried the first one, and he had a mixed response. Some tumors grew, some tumors shrunk. The next one, he was stable. He was on that for a few months. So actually, when we switched from standard of care 1 to standard of care 2 is where I'm a little bit of a dog on a bone. If my husband were still alive, he would tell you that. And I think a lot of people actually that know me would tell you that. I looked at Dr. Lim and said, what else is there? And he's like, well, there really isn't much else. Like, basically, we're giving him chemo hoping he'd have a dramatic response. He didn't really. What happens with pancreatic cancer is oftentimes it learns the treatment. It's a smart cancer. It's very tough to treat. So my thought was, all right, so we've gone down Avenue A. Done. That didn't really work. We're on B. What if that works? What is C, D, E, F, and G? Because mind you, I've got young kids, and this guy's not going to die. Not under my watch. So I'm like, what else is there? And by the way, it was not like I wasn't really. I was very focused on trying to keep him alive, trying to keep myself from having nervous breakdowns. I mean, you can imagine the depression, anxiety, everything that it was a whirlwind.
Of course.
So we're just we're trying to survive. But anyway, I just said, what else is there? And he said, there are things in labs right now. And I had to pull this out of him. Okay. And mind you, I was in medical sales for 10 years. So I know how to talk to doctors. I'm not afraid to ask. I'm not afraid for things to get uncomfortable. Because at the end of the day, we're all people. Yeah. Regardless of your education level or your position, we're people. And we're talking about my husband here. And so he said, there's stuff in labs right now, but it's all going to take time. We just got to kind of hang on. And I'm like, well, how much time? We don't really know. I'm like, well, explain this to me. Because in my head, I'm like, let's just break this down. How do you get a product that's doing really well in a lab, in mice, to human? What does that look like? How much time? How much money? And long and the short of it, he said, money is what's holding these things back. There isn't enough money for cancer research. And I'm like, how much money do you need to do that? Again, had to pull it out of him. And he essentially said around $3 million is what it takes to get from lab to phase 1. $3 million. And so I looked at him and said, I'm going to find you $3 million. And he was like, you don't, he's like this little Asian man, so nice. He's like, you don't have to do that. I'm like, but I do.
Yeah. You're like, have you met me?
Well, and if it's my husband's life, what's it worth? So from there, I opened a fund to fund a study because my thought process and what I talked long and hard with Dr. Lim was if I was able to get $3 million, could we get the company to let us use their drug in Kyle because it would be a patient of 1. And actually, so I did open a fund for Dr. Lim right away. I started making phone calls, writing emails, letters, because I'm like, if I can get $3 million into his hands ASAP, and Kyle can be one of 50 or 60 patients of an extremely promising drug, like it's our chance. This is why I'm not giving up hope. And
did you have confirmation that if you got that money to him, that it would happen?
I mean, he told me it would.
Okay.
And I was like, that's all I needed to hear.
Okay.
And so I actually came across the study. I can't remember who sent it to me. It doesn't matter. But I remember looking at the study. And again, I kind of know how to read studies because I was in medical sales. And I remember looking at the drug companies thinking, gosh, I wonder if I know anybody there. So I had kept my Instagram going, honestly, just to feel like I had something outside of cancer because cancer took over our entire life.
Yeah.
Stage 4 terminal cancer took over our life. And so anyway, I'd gone on Instagram and posted, hey, does anybody know anybody at this company? and someone that I had worked with sent me a message shortly thereafter and said, and this was the company that was making this like special drug. We'll call it the study drug. And so I knew that I had to get an okay from this company to use this drug. And then we would get the chemo and immunotherapy. Those were the other two pieces. So there's 3 pieces to this puzzle.
Okay.
So I knew somebody that sent me a message and said, I actually am friends with the CEO and president of that company. I'm not kidding you. You want to talk about stars aligning? So I had that CEO and president of the company's cell phone number. So I called him up, left a message. He called me back. Wow. Shortly thereafter, we had a 30-minute conversation. I told him our story, who my husband was, who we were, why I needed his drug, because his drug was the key piece. His drug was an inhibitor that basically, in layman terms, softens the coating around the cancer. So my husband was not initially eligible for immunotherapy, which is doing wonders for cancer right now, as many of you may know. It basically starts up your immune system's fire to kill only the cancer. Okay, so Kyle wasn't eligible, but with this drug, it would soften essentially the scar tissue or the hardened shell around the cancer cell. It would soften it so that you could use less chemo and immunotherapy would work. So some people may not know this. I didn't know this. Chemo oftentimes is what ends up ending people's lives. Yes, it kills the cancer and extends your life to a certain period of time, but the side effects can be so brutal. Yeah. Because it kills everything, all cells.
Right.
But it's a necessary evil. So long of the short of it, I talked to that guy, the CEO and president, and he said, listen, that drug is being studied for rheumatoid arthritis right now. And I'm like, awesome. We'll get Kyle a rheumatoid arthritis diagnosis. And he's like, it doesn't really work like that. He's like, but what we can potentially go for is compassionate use, because Dr. Lim is the one that was doing the study with his partner. If we can get my board to say yes, my entire board has to say unanimous yes to use this drug for pancreatic cancer and not rheumatoid arthritis, then we can potentially move forward. So he had a board meeting on that Monday. So what do? I Google. I'm like, who's on his board? Again, because I'm thinking, we're all people. We're all humans.
Right.
Number 2 on his board is someone I worked under. I knew him. So I got his cell phone number from one of my other colleagues. Called him, and I'm like, hey, Bill, Kira, don't remember me. Because I only worked with him for 2 years, but he supposedly remembered me. It doesn't matter. Told him our story, and he was like, we have a board meeting on Monday. I'm like, yes, I'm aware. That's why I'm calling you. He's like, I will do everything in my power to get everybody to vote yes on this. Wow. Because it's risky for the company, right?
Of course, yeah.
If it doesn't work.
Absolutely, yeah.
So anyway, long and the short of it, they said yes. Wow. And because they said yes, another Dr. Lim actually called me. I don't know if that's Sunday or Monday, and was like, hey, Kira, sounds like you've been busy. I'm like, oh, yeah, I told you I was doing, we're getting this done. Wow. And another company who had a similar inhibitor had also agreed, because Dr. Lim was like, all right, this company's saying yes. Who can get it to us the quickest? Wow. So both companies were on board. The other company actually was able to get it approved and into our hands sooner. Wow. So then we had to go to, we went to Merck, and they did allow us to use their their immunotherapy, a compassionate use, basically for free. So I'm so thankful for Merck, because they allowed us to use that immunotherapy. Wow. And then our insurance paid for the chemo. Wow. So we got the yes from everybody. So Dr. Lim's freaking out, because for years, he's been trying to get this approved.
Isn't that wild?
Wild.
Yes. Here, the medical professional can't get the approval. Wow. Maybe that's a different podcast.
Yeah, it's wild.
Yeah.
So we get a yes. We're like, oh my gosh, this is happening. Dr. Lim's running around. His nurse, helper is like, oh my gosh, this is really happening. So Dr. Lim has to create a study of 1. And we have to get it approved through WashU and through the FDA. This is not easy stuff.
No.
And it takes time, and anybody can say no or maybe or put it off. Meanwhile, we're still trying to get Kyle treatment.
Right.
He's getting sick. Rebecca, throughout his treatment, we were in the hospital a dozen times. He had at least 10 blood transfusions, tons of, different infusions. This was not pretty or easy at all.
Right. And you didn't have time.
We didn't have time.
You didn't have time.
No.
Yeah.
And he's getting sick, and he is on all sorts of medications, and we're trying to keep the house alive. It just, it was a nightmare. But we were like, I was like, okay, like I'm not stopping. This is like, we're going to continue to go after this to the best of our ability, because it's that old saying, fight like your life depends on it. Mm-hmm. Our life depended on it.
Thanks for listening to Moms of the Lou. We hope it encouraged you and put a pep in your step and helped you get to know our community a little bit better. Be sure to find us on Instagram, st.louis_mom. You can find us on Facebook, St. Louis Mom. You can find us on our website, www.stlouismom.com. In case nobody else tells you today, you're a great mom and you're doing a great job. Chat with you next time.